Hi everyone, this is AJ and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something that's on the minds of a lot of people when they first start to think about a career in film, and that's whether or not to go to film school. So I have to give you a bit of a preface here. I haven't myself actually been to film school yet. So this is a question I've been grappling with quite a lot recently, and kind of these are my thoughts that I've gathered over the last couple of months that I'm sharing with you guys. So please feel free to take them with a pinch of salt. Okay, so as I often do with a lot of decisions I make, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, I have built a pros and cons list. So just without further ado, we're going to start with the pros. So the first pro, of course, is building connections. Now a little bit about myself. I work at a film collective called Journeyman based out of Bangalore, and almost everyone within the collective and the people that they work with are people that they've met through film school. So the best thing that gives you obviously is people that you know very well. So when you go to film school with people and you kind of spend that much time with them and you grow as artists together, you begin to trust each other. And another thing I've definitely learned is that trust is one of the biggest things on a film set. So the moment you can trust the people you're working with, that's half the work done. Having someone that you can just gel with and is on the same wavelength as you, just likely to meet them more, I guess, in film school. So that's the second pro. Third thing is access to equipment. See, now this is kind of a gray area because anyone will argue, and maybe I'll even argue when I come up with my cons list, but a lot of people would argue that now we're in a position in terms of the access to technology where film equipment has never been cheaper and never been more accessible. In fact, you know, there are so many people now that are shooting everything on their phone. So access to equipment is like a gray area in terms of whether it can be a pro or a con. But definitely just off the bat, being trained in that level of equipment that film schools offer you is definitely something that you may not always have access to otherwise. So that's a big deal. So number four is basically, I guess it boils down to your approach towards film, because film, like anything else, has both a theoretical as well as practical understanding of it. So what film school, I believe, or at least from the conversations I've had with people, brings you is that theoretical understanding where you're basically studying film as an actual discipline and not as something that you just learn on the go, and which is a very subjective experience, which honestly also a lot of people will argue that it is. But definitely getting that super academic approach to film is something that you may not otherwise get. So the fifth point is a specialized degree. Now we live in such an incredibly competitive world today that having that degree can maybe push you just a notch above everyone else who will, have the same amount of talent or the same amount or same approach or same kind of other background as you. So maybe it could count as a pro. We don't know. It's there yet to see. It's in my pro list for now. And now moving on as we must to the cons. So the most obvious con about film school is how expensive it is. And there's really nothing I can say about this. It's just, I guess, your approach towards it in terms of whether you want to look at it as an investment or something that's just not worth it. But the undeniable fact of the matter is that film school is incredibly expensive. Con number two. There are enough and more people who have found success without actually going to film school. So off the top of my head, you have Wes Anderson, you have Quentin Tarantino, you have Anurag Kashyap in India. And in fact, Werner Herzog, the really famous German director, has gone on to even say that film school is a complete waste of time. And everything that you need to learn, you can actually learn on the job. So I guess that's just, again, a difference of approach. But the thing is that going to film school rather, or getting a film degree isn't a sure form of success. Point number three. Again, like I said before, we are in a position right now where access to equipment and film and even a variety of film has never been more easy. So earlier, a lot of reasons that people would definitely go to film school is because the film libraries and archives that used to exist there and the kind of access to great filmmakers that they wouldn't otherwise have gotten. But now, in the age of OTTs, films you need to watch or want to watch rather are easily accessible everywhere. So the entire idea of having to go to film school to access those isn't actually a real fact anymore. So maybe that's not enough of a reason then to spend that kind of money to end up going there. The last con that I have that I've actually been thinking a lot about personally for me is how maybe going to film school possibly limits innovation. Now, something that I hold really dearly to me is that the entire point of being a filmmaker is to be able to innovate. And sometimes this happens when we're taught to think in a certain way or introduced to a certain framework, we tend to unconsciously even stick to that. So that maybe if you do go to film school and are taught that this is the way you have to make a film, that is possibly a way in which that's the only way that you think a film should be made. And that could potentially stop you from innovating and coming up with other ways. Something at least everyone in India is familiar with is the concept of jugaad, and the amount of films that I have been on and the film sets that I have been on where jugaad has been used to create the most beautiful shots and to get the most astounding moments is incredible. So I've learned firsthand how much innovation can actually push your film just that extra mile and just make it absolutely fantastic. So now something I've just been kind of thinking about is whether maybe having that framework or having that ingrained thought process or ingrained education saying that this is the only way that it must be done might possibly limit me in the future. Either way, again, I think it all boils down to what you want out of film, what you want out of your career, what your priorities are largely. Because again, those connections and that kind of experience of being in a film school is something that is never something you're going to get anywhere else. It's not something that can be replicated. It's not something that can be derived from something else. So if you place that at your prime as something that's absolutely a top priority, then film school is the way to go. But if expense, if the idea of wanting to make your own film, carving your own path out rather, is something you'd rather do on your own, or you don't think it's worth it to spend that much money on, then it's entirely up to you, and that's another way to go as well. Either way, I still haven't made a decision yet, and I'm looking forward to what you guys have to say about this. So please put your comments in the comment box below, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say, and see you next time.